What is up, everybody? This is going to be awesome. I mean, it's not an awesome situation, but it's an interesting one. Now, I've talked before with my friend Andrew Esquire. You can find him over at Legal Mindset. He's not here, obviously, but he has been covering this Rittenhouse case for a while, like the entire time. And he pointed out things that ended up happening. And I thought that was so fascinating. And I have two of my good friends here who, we've discussed it as well. And it just kind of brought us, it's got to be something that we talk about. It can't be ignored. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Hayden. Really appreciate you guys being here. And let's go ahead and just get started. Chris, if you want to introduce yourself and then just, share a little bit about like what your opinion is on this whole situation.
Yeah, all right. What's up, guys? My name is Chris. My handle here is Dangerously Reasonable after the great the Huntsman here. Long story short, he said something that offended a couple people, but it was actually the more reasonable thing to say because apparently that's lost in this world. But anyways, the main thing that I took away from this case was two things. It is the fact that, first things first, I had never seen a worse prosecution in my life. If you want to talk about why the case went the way it did, you have to blame the prosecution because every single thing the prosecution was saying did not add up to any sort of legal indictment of any sort of anything else other than a self-defense act, which, let's just be honest, it was true and it was poorly executed. The ending argument was absolutely tremendous in a very bad way, if you know what I mean. It was absolutely abhorrent. The fact that the prosecuting lawyer basically said that, one of the rioters, Mr. I forgot what his name is, starts with an S. I'm drawing a blank on it, but he said the actual N-word in the midst of the riot. That is very counterintuitive to what I believe what this whole entire thing was about. So it was absolutely abhorrent. It was a very, very bad case upon the prosecution. And nothing was attacked. None of the ideas were actually attacked. None of the laws itself was actually attacked. It was just blanket ideals. And people are going out now, probably going to riot. And I'm going to call it right now. There's probably going to be riots because of this. And it's mainly because people are having this idea, but they don't have the objective to do it, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, very sloppy. Thank you, Chris. So, Hayden, introduce yourself. Who are you?
I'm Hayden, the Sultan of Sexy, the shaman of salt, and a self-proclaimed Huguenot.
Why do I hang out with you?
I could ask myself the same question, man. Why have I been friends with you this long? All you do is annoy me. We may have done it once. All right, there, I said it, okay? I've come to terms with it. But I myself have followed this case. I've watched quite a lot of it live. Let's call it what it is. It is a tragic situation. Anytime there is loss of life, I do know the two men who were unfortunately killed by Kyle Rittenhouse. Whatever their motives were, you'd never want to see anyone get killed, self-defense or not. So let's start by saying, let's all wish we could have just avoided the whole situation to begin with. That being said, the prosecution had an uphill battle with the evidence being presented. There have been arguments made that the inability to call Mr. Rosenbaum, Mr. Hubert, and Gage Grosskreutz victims, that they say that could have influenced it. Maybe that's true. It did feel to me that this case was based quite a lot on an emotional appeal as opposed to the cold hard facts. I'll point to ADA Krause's closing statements when he called Kyle Rittenhouse a coward for I'm paraphrasing here. He committed the cowardly act of bringing a gun to a fist fight. That is very much an emotional appeal. Even when you watch, the opposition to the verdict, those who are not in favor of it, they're not really pointing out the problems with the facts of the case. They're pointing out what this means to the broader picture. And I really think that is something we need to discuss. Loopholes in the law, stand your ground law, and kind of how our whole due process situation works, as well as kind of how we cover things. Because I do know there were issues with how that the media did cover this case, which obviously the judge did comment on. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and it's and that's why it's close to my heart because I've shared before one of the lawyers that's been covering it online here, Andrew Esquire. He runs the Legal Mindset over on YouTube, and so I'll probably end up putting it in the description or pinning something up here. He's been covering this whole thing throughout, and he just pointed out the blatant facts of everything. And when I went on with him and we talked about my own case where I had the state coming after me versus person to person law, they don't care about doing it right. They care about winning, and it's frustrating because you saw here that they couldn't put it together. They couldn't put any of it together. And it's a shame because, a lot of people, they get riled up by the media just throwing out certain statements. And actually, even today, he live streamed and he shared an article that he saw, and the framing of the article. And maybe at some point here, I can go ahead and find it and share it. But the framing of the article makes, like, even after the fact, makes him look bad and everybody else good. And it's just it's not fair. It's not right. Like, law for us, it's a set of guidelines. If you break the guidelines, that's it. So why is the media focusing on how they can manipulate the fact that 1 + 1 = 2? It doesn't equal 3 today. It still equals 2. So why are we trying to change that?
Well, you bring up a really good point, and I don't think it's that 1 + 2 = 3. I think it's more the fact that 1 + 1 makes a bigger 1. Now, that quote came from Yeoman Park, who is a North Korean survivor, and basically what she means is this. It doesn't matter what the actual facts are. It doesn't matter what the actual logic behind things are. If there's an emotional drive, there's a political drive, something is going to happen because of it. We have to remember, emotions are stronger than logic, unfortunate as that may be at times. And this is a simple case of that, as we can see. A lot of things within the recent times have been politicized. And we can draw this all the way back to, I'll even make the argument, you can draw this back to Obama when he said that Mitt Romney had the binders full of women thing, when all Mitt Romney meant was saying that he had plenty of applications from women that were applying for jobs so he can have more inclusion of women in his industry in his business that he was running. It goes all the way back to that, and it's just festered. And basically what we ended up seeing, and I'll even say this here, the reason why Trump got elected was because it was partially because it was starting to go that way. And then when the right happened, that's when you saw this whole entire battle of, no, we're right and just, no, we're right and just, no, we're right and just, no, we're right and just. It's everyone just trying to do a friggin', jerk off battle to see who shoots the farthest at this point. It's absolutely fucking terrible. Pardon my language. But when you look at the actual case in and of itself and see how actual things happen, how to make actual change happen, the way that this is going on is not actual change. When Martin Luther King and even Malcolm X, even though Malcolm X may have had some more questionable opinions about, what he was fighting for as opposed to Martin Luther King, who was more peaceful, what were they doing? Not only were they attacking the ideas of the 1960s of segregation, they were attacking the law. When you attack the law, you can actually make the change. And here's where I'm going to bring this up. Now, obviously, there was the law that, an 18-year-old is not allowed to have a gun, but they found a loophole in the law that said it was meant for like a sawed-off shotgun type of things to decrease, violence. But let's ask ourselves something legit here. Why the fuck does a kid who's a teenager have an AR-15 in the first place?
Yeah, so he was 17 at the time. Instead of doing a prosecution on murder, why was the prosecution not on the gun laws themselves? Like this, somebody else bought it for him and handed it off, but we never got into that. And because of the way that the prosecution handled it, and Hayden, correct me if I'm wrong. You're a lot more into this than I am. I believe that the whatever they said with prejudice,
Mistrial.
they can't open it up again.
Correct. So a mistrial essentially is where the judge declares this trial cannot continue with a fair verdict being declared one way or the other. Without prejudice basically means we do the whole thing over again. We refile. Without prejudice essentially means there's no case. This is over.
Or with prejudice, which one? How did it end up? Was it with or without?
He was acquitted on all 5 counts.
Okay, I just don't recall if it was with or without. But,
no. So a mistrial would be if the jury came back, say, as a hung jury, for example, meaning they couldn't reach a unanimous decision. The judge would then be forced to declare a mistrial either with prejudice or without prejudice. Now, the defense had filed 2 motions, one for dismissal with prejudice because of D.A. Binger's decision to question Rittenhouse's decision to remain silent at arrest, which is not an admission of guilt. That is your constitutional right to remain silent at all times. Lawyers they teach you this in high school. Lawyers cannot bring that up in trial. The other thing was the suppression or the evidence issue with the video from the drone. The defense got a compressed version that was very pixelated. The prosecution kept a much cleaner, high-def version. So I believe they filed a motion to dismiss without prejudice because that's a lower standard burden, and judges are much more likely to actually to grant that motion. You restart the trial from scratch.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because like in my situation, and law is very interesting, but it's a guidelines you have to go by it. Now with me, I believe it was called non contendere or something, and it means no contest. It essentially is a way to settle before going to trial, where you're like, I didn't say I did it, but I didn't say I didn't do it. And I cannot ever have a personal lawsuit against me. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to understand about this trial, and that's something that I haven't looked deeper into, but it seems like that's kind of the case here, where he's going to be protected with the fact that this was so sloppy, and that's why I was saying, should they really have been going after him for murder, or they should be going after something else? A 17-year-old should not have a rifle like that.
Absolutely.
Not like that. And let me fix the terms on that. Not like that. A 17-year-old should not have a rifle. The type doesn't matter. They shouldn't be going around with a rifle.
Yeah.
And I think that's
I can abide by that. I can abide by that. Where they should have rifles and shotguns is with their instructor, parent, knowledgeable friend who is of legal age on the range, or in a hunt at a hunting camp.
And it's also ironic, if you don't mind me butting in, it's almost ironic that you say it, because if that were the case, if they brought it up that way, well, guess what? Now you could have brought this up to the Supreme Court.
That is true.
You could have brought this up to the Supreme Court, and you could have actually made a change within the city of Wisconsin, probably on the federal level as well, that no child should be able to have there should be no state law that states that a kid can have a gun under the age of 18. You could have had that chance, but did they take it? No. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah. It's the wrong angle. Exactly.
Yeah. So an easier method to prosecute, again, I am not a lawyer by any means, just kind of what I observed. I feel like they had a stronger case. And I don't know how Wisconsin law works on this, but there is a charge in some states called voluntary manslaughter. It's not the same burden as reckless homicide. It's not the same burden as any kind of homicide.
As involuntary manslaughter too. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So voluntary manslaughter, I lose control, I shove you, I do something that's not really criminal, but you die as a result. That essentially that's what it is. And then there's involuntary, where I do something stupid and you die as a result. That actually, that's easier to charge. They opted not to go that route, potentially because it didn't fit the letter of the law. I should have looked this up before we got on this. But immediately my thought was they might try to reduce the charges before trial to a manslaughter charge, try to get him that way. But they went for the homicide, attempted homicide, reckless homicide. on all 5 counts. I don't know if that was they believe they had an airtight case. Because again, just speaking to some of the witness testimony from the prosecution, Gage Grosskreutz said it flat out, and I was actually watching a repeat of this on MSNBC today. When he said, when I had my hands up, Rittenhouse didn't even wave the gun at me. When I came at him with the gun in my hand, that's when he fired. And you just saw the prosecutor, I believe it was crouched behind, do this. And I was like, yeah, that's about as damning of evidence of testimony as you're going to get in a self-defense trial. I'm kind of surprised they would even call that witness to the stand.
Right. And one thing that I want to point out here, and because I'm sure a lot of people that, may watch this back, they won't know all the full, all the full details. Hayden, when you get married one day, which we all know that's not going to happen, but
I have a girlfriend now.
So when you get married and when you have little Hayden, little Hayden girl, or I don't know.
I have a daughter I can name.
I don't know exactly. Hold on. I don't know exactly if it's a guy or a girl. But let's say you have little Hayden girl. You have a little daughter, and she gets raped. How do you feel about that?
So I cannot.
So one of the guys that was killed was a convicted sex offender for that.
He had 5 counts of child molestation against him. Yep.
So then why are we acting like he's the victim? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I don't have an issue cursing and speaking a certain way about this, because seriously, are you fucking kidding me? How can he even conceivably be the victim? I think that somebody who acts that way should be put away for their entire life. And the fact that he was let free again and chose to go to a riot situation, no wonder something went bad. He was unstable to begin with.
And if I can, I'm gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent about that being one of the greatest failures of our legal system. Is that in a lot of cases, some I know personally, some I've heard of, some I've read about, sex crimes, the few that are reported, because it's an underreported element of crime, a lot of the dark figures of crime are sex crimes. A lot of these guys who do it, they get off with probation, suspended sentence, counseling, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, if you have this guy dead to rights, guilty verdict, et cetera, I'm sorry, why are you getting the easy sentence? Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. I would throw the book at these people every single time. We all know about that Stanford swimmer situation who got that suspended sentence.
Yeah. No, dude, that was ridiculous when he raped the girl. And sorry, my browser was messing up. That was the guy that raped the girl behind a dumpster.
Yeah, and the judge let him off because it was like, well, he's got a bright future. No, he is a rapist. If I had my way, I would do a chemical castration, but no one will listen to me. So lock him up, throw away the key, pal. Like what are we doing here? What we're gonna not only is this guy
like, and you know what, Hayden, I'm gonna pull it back to what we're really getting at, and it's what are we focusing about as a country? And that's the whole thing. What are we focusing on? We're focusing more on the fact that this guy was shutting down a riot and protecting this family business versus sex offenders.
Well,
Am I the crazy one?
No, and I'll explain another thing. There was another case that happened in Virginia. A little bit of a different case. It didn't deal with any possible police brutality or anything like that. There was a case where there was a boy that wore dresses who I guess who considered themselves the opposite sex.
Loudoun County, right?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
And it turns out that that he saw a girl there in the girls' room because he went to the girls' room and he sodomized her. It was terrible. But what happened? They turned the father of that poor girl into a domestic terrorist because he was really angry about it, as any father would be. And I do have to ask, in some cases, where is this Me Too? Sometimes, Where did that go? Where did it go? That was clearly a good case of that. I asked you, where did that go? Could not be found, because apparently we now live in an age where the feeling of staying behind something is more important than actually committing justice at times. And if we really want to make a change in this world, we need to start attacking the laws and changing the laws if you really want to see that change. That's why I said, if you want to make a change within this law and you want to put Kyle Rittenhouse behind bars, you should have brought this up to the Supreme Court, and you shouldn't have had that kid with a rifle, an AR-15, which is a civilian rifle, at that young age, especially with 30 rounds in it.
So one thing that I talk about with my girlfriend a lot is she is a huge proponent of voting for your local people. It's not about, oh, I go out and I vote every 4 years. It's voting for the local leaders of your community. And now by doing that, you're able to find the people that are willing to change the law in a way that coincides to what you're thinking. And that goes along with exactly what you're saying, Matako, that if you keep just ignoring it or voting for other people, and then the law doesn't change and you're angry about the law, whose fault is that? At the end of the day, whose fault is that? When you go ahead and vote and try and change what's going on in your community, then you can be like, this sucks. It's not changing. But when you don't do anything at all and you go out and riot, let's be realistic here. It's your fault, and it's a lot of other people's fault, and you have to take responsibility for not being a part of it.
Right. And the other thing I also wanted, because apparently we live in an age of revolutionaries as well. This is something I don't think we also discuss. We don't discuss this enough either. We have this big revolutionary culture within colleges, within, younger individuals. And I get it. You want to make a change. You want to feel special. We live in the age of wanting to feel special. And trust me, we all have special abilities that we're good at. We all have certain talents, but to put it in a way, and no matter what pain you've experienced in the past, it doesn't justify you bringing others down so you can feel better. You know what I mean? And instead of, going out and rioting, maybe actually do it, like, not to say write a petition or do whatever, something like that, but there's a lot of things more productive that you could be doing to actually change your community by leading by example than just going out, rioting, burning things, and just making it inconvenience for other people. Because when all of those riots happened in 2020, you saw people of all colors and creeds with arms in their hands trying to protect their businesses because they were getting broken into. There were even jiu-jitsu schools in Philadelphia that got broken into.
Yeah, did you see what Route 1 in Philly looked like after all this shit was happening? It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. People's lives are destroyed because their business that they spent time building was destroyed by people that were angry, but angry about what? It's not focused anger, and it needs to be focused. And if you focus your anger, what are you focusing it at? If it's something about the law, then do something to change the law. Don't attack somebody else because you're angry. It's the same example of when a father hits his child and then the child bullies the kid at the school.
Transference.
Yeah,
exactly.
Anger just transfers. So what are you doing, and what are you planning to accomplish? And when you disarm somebody like this and ask them that question, most of the time they can't tell you. And then when they say, oh, it's like white supremacy or something like that, and then you ask, okay, what about it? They can't give you the information. It's like,
they can give you anecdotal information. They can give you certain pieces of information. But the thing is that, listen, a lot of people think that we live back in the 1960s still.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not this. Obviously, listen, there's another trial that's taking place right now. The Ahmaud Arbery trial.
Ahmaud Arbery, yeah.
The Ahmaud Arbery trial. Now, that trial is very much, and I think we can all agree, that right there, if you want an example of racism, that's an example of racism flat out right there.
Unless
you want to fight for some justice, that's one to fight justice for.
Unless somebody unless the defense has some evidence that we're not aware of, yeah, those I can't believe that's in your trial.
And
Those,
even then, that's another
you should
part.
have taken a plea deal. Like
And
they're
that's another.
dead.
And that's another part where you can attack a certain law. You can attack the whole idea of civilian arrest. Who the fuck needs civilian arrest anymore? We're not in the 1800s.
So I see where you're coming from, and these guys in particular, I can't remember their names. Anyway, the guys who killed Ahmaud Arbery, they were there. I think their defense is literally we were trying to make a civilian arrest because he was allegedly committing a crime, but you didn't see the crime. You hadn't actually been called out to the thing. You kind of made that up.
Yeah, it's different.
It's flimsy at best and grasping at straws. Now, as far as civilian arrest goes, if for example, let's say you're walking down the street, you see some dude beating the hell out of his girlfriend, whatever, obviously you break that up. But as on a human level, I feel the need that I should be able to put that guy in a wrist lock and walk him to the nearest police station, or detain him until the police arrive, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think taking away civilian arrest altogether, not quite where we need to be, but there was no reason for them to have anything to do with that guy going for a run.
Oh my God, yes.
And
no reason whatsoever. But the one thing that I want to bring up too, and this is again when it comes to law, do you know how to properly do a citizen's arrest on somebody?
I saw one on an episode of King of the Hill once. Maybe.
But that's the thing. That's what's so important. If we're going to use law as the law of our land, shouldn't we know what it is and how to use it? Because I tell you right now, I don't know what's proper for citizen's arrest. And I'm sure that they didn't either. And so, maybe there is malicious intent, which quite honestly, I think there was. But how are they, how is anybody to know what they're supposed to do when we're busy, teaching trigonometry in schools and we're not teaching the law that we live in?
Okay, well, first of all, trigonometry is very helpful to know because it helps debunk flat earthers if you ever need a cheap laugh. Okay.
What's more important, flat earthers or debunking flat earthers or doing a citizen's arrest in time of crisis?
Where am I when this is occurring? Because that's very important to the answer to this question. I'm hanging out in my room just trolling the internet. Yeah, definitely the trigonometry and flat earther thing. If I'm out on the street and I see a crime committed, knowing the citizen's arrest and how to do a wrist lock, probably a bit more important. But the one thing about the Ahmaud Arbery case is the older guy was a retired police officer. And the other guy, I don't know who the third guy was. The second guy was his son. They should know the procedure for a citizen's arrest, or at least the old guy should have. So, yeah, good luck to them. Enjoy a lifetime in prison because
it's clearly a lifetime in prison.
And assuming you escape the death penalty,
And so I have something else to ask. Why did that case happen now? Why is that case going on now? When that one was back in 2017, wasn't it?
No,
when it occurred?
Okay, I thought it was 2000, early 20, late 19. Now, obviously, we can blame a little bit on delays and stuff on COVID. But my understanding was the actual event itself had occurred much earlier, or the arrest was made in early 20, late 19. The crime itself was committed much earlier, but because the one guy was an ex-police officer, his friends at the DA didn't want to pursue the case. Now that's actually something I'm surprised is not being reported on more, because that shows legitimate systemic racism through means of corruption.
Again, they're not directing it towards the right source of the problem. They're just trying to put it as one thing.
The problem is,
I want to get deeper into it. Give me a second, guys. You guys keep going, keep talking about it. I gotta take care of something.
Yeah, I might need to bounce off too. I'm not feeling too hot, but I'll just say this and leave.
You guys just keep going for right now. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
And leave this at the last thing, and it's basically we're attacking these broad ideas. Well, the thing is, if you want to attack these broad ideas, you can't just throw an entire horde at it and throw all your troops at it all at once. That's not how you do it, right? So if you really want to attack the system, how do you attack the system? You have to really attack the certain points. And by attacking
elections.
What?
Local elections.
Well, exactly. Local elections, pointing out flaws in the law. That's how you attack the situation in a tactful and actual meaningful way. Just throwing all your troops at a broad idea and just, just toppling everything down, even without even, having a singular target. At least when you did, at least, like, put it this way, at least when the Soviets took over Russia, they at least attacked the Tsar. They knew who the enemy was.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have such a broad idea of what the enemy is, you're not going to be able to win because you're just attacking everything because you don't know where to attack. You just attack these things that seem like it, and then you end up dispersed and you don't know how to solve the situation at the end of the day.
Well, that's a lesson we learned the hard way in Vietnam.
Exactly.
So,
Fucking exactly. That's how we lost Nan, and that's how
we lost that. No. Well, that's the funny part. Wars of ideology, or wars of winning hearts and minds. You don't win hearts and minds the way we did in Nam, or kind of how we went about it in Afghanistan. You don't do it that way. It really is a generational thing. You have to establish and build that trust. And but again, going back to what I said, if you really want to necessitate change, you can elect whoever you want as president, and that'll change some stuff on the macro level. If you want to really affect change in a meaningful way, it has to start local. If you want, if you want your community to basically overhaul its system to be more fair and more equitable, you have to start local and let that build out, because more small communities do it. Guess what? More states will want to do it. Guess what? Big leaders will then want to do it, and as a country, and it's not something that occurs overnight, unfortunately. It takes years. It takes conversations, but that's how you do it.
And what are you doing to move it forward if you're not voting for these local leaders that are going to bring you in that direction? Then how can you complain if you're not voting every single year for the leaders and the people that believe the same way that you do? Then what are you complaining about?
Yeah, guys, I gotta go. So
it's all good, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, dude.
What's like my father used to say? I used to, in my young teenage rebellious years, I used to say, "Dad, I'm never going to vote. It's mathematically irrelevant." And he said, "Fine, but then you don't get to complain." And anybody who knows me, you especially know my favorite thing to do, apart from lecture, is
argue.
Well, that too.
What did you say?
I like to complain.
Okay, fair enough.
I like to lament. I like to. I'm out of similes. Anyway, again, you skip a local election, and a guy whose issues you don't like, or someone whose issues you don't like gets elected. Why didn't you vote? I mean, okay, fine. Mathematically speaking, it might not have made a difference, but think about it. A lot of people like you think that hive mind mentality, and you're not voting. Like, that's the problem with, I think, a lot of people in this country, is they're focused on every 4 years or every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, if there's an election, go vote local. I know kids our age are. I'm still a kid. I don't care what you say. I know. Our generation and the generation below us are a lot more politically active. I think it's great. Because the way to affect real change is to get out, vote local, see what these local communities are doing, and see how it works. Find the bugs, address them. That way, when it goes statewide or national, we know what we're doing. Versus broad strokes that just don't make sense to anybody.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I was bringing up before on if you rely on just mainstream media to write your narrative, then it's not going to go anywhere that fits you. Like, for example, what I was saying before, where Andrew was sharing an article that was written and how they framed it such that that Rittenhouse was the bad guy and these people were the victims even after the verdict. How can you do that? I don't understand. If you bring these people in, you have a judge dealing with it, you witness the entire trial. How at the end of it are you trying to still frame it like something's wrong with the legal system? You're just causing mistrust in our own legal system, and we can't have that.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't. I can't speak to why they would continue to do that.
Because it gets more clicks, it gets more views.
It is clickbait,
It's unbelievable, dude. It's unbelievable, and I get so frustrated with it. And it's interesting, talking with Tusk last night about how he travels around the world and he does a lot of boot camps with guys and helps them just conquer whatever they're dealing with when it comes to social skills and dating. And that's one piece of it. And then I just just think about everybody else. They're stuck for no reason. Like they're not actively trying to change, and they just play the victim expecting a handout. And you are the master of your own destiny.
I'm the master of my domain, and if you get that reference, you're too old.
I do not. I'm too young.
Damn.
But seriously, like I get so frustrated with it because it's like, you say that somebody says to you, I can't believe that kid gunned down all those people and then got away free. And then you're like, what do you mean? And then they internally combust because they can't even give you the facts, because everybody is just relying on hearing the information. And I think that's why it's so important to travel, to see other areas, and to really, like, whatever you want to do with life, understand yourself. Once you understand yourself, stand by what you believe in, and then go forward with that. And a lot of people do not do that. And that's what's so frustrating, because we get into situations like this where everybody has an opinion, yet nobody has even researched or followed any of what's been going on.
Meme news, I call it.
Well, I mean, we were just talking before this on the crypto stuff. Meme coins can make you a lot of money if you know how to do it right.
By the way, starting my own coin. It's going to be Avatar: The Last Airbender coin.
Nice. I got an airdrop of boobs coming to me. The fact that, dude, I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to some people, and I was just like, what world am I living in anymore? I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I got boobs coming to me. I don't know what boobs they are, but I'm sure it's gonna be like 50,000 boobs.
50,000 boobs, yeah. What is the cash value of a boob? 1/100th of a cent.
This is the world that we live in, and that's why, like, these types of conversations need to happen, even if even if we can't bring like the legal experience or anything else to it, the conversation is at least still happening.
Yeah.
And you can't have this conversation with a lot of people because then they label you a certain way, and that's not the country I want to live in. Let's put it that way. The country that I want to live in is a country that is free speech, that you can have opinion and you can discuss your ideas and then come to a conclusion. Not I say something and you point a finger at me.
Yeah, and I do think it might have, I wish we could have had somebody who feels incredibly strongly that he was 100% guilty and is dissatisfied with the verdict, I do think, and maybe have two people on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm much more in the middle. I looked at the facts of the case. I obviously have my opinions on it. I'm trying.
I think completely. The fact that he was even there was wrong. I think at the base level, the reptilian brain, he wanted to do good, but he immaturely tried to do good, and it was not his role. So stay out of the problem. So I think he's wrong, but the charges that they brought against him did not fit that mold.
Right. Like my whole issue with these idiotic, dumb, and quite frankly childish militias. Oh, I'm so hardcore. I got an AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
Get the hell out of here with that crap. If you want to impress me, okay, zero in 400 yards, 30 at 6, and don't hit yourself in the face with a scope. Go ahead. I'll wait. Oh, wait. You can't? Yeah, because you don't know how to shoot.
Exactly.
My neighbor who was like that used to drive me crazy. Anyway, so, and he hit himself in the face with the scope when I was like, Oh,
it's like people the first time they shoot a shotgun and they blow out their shoulder.
yeah. I was like, what? This kid.
Oh
This
my
kid.
God.
I was like, I took him down to a range, and I'm like, I hand him my rifle. I'm like, all right, I'm zeroed in. I just hit the target, and he goes, oh, he's gushing blood all over the place. I'm like, all right, well, this was an hour drive well spent. Come here, let me get you a Band-Aid. I thought you knew how to shoot. Like, but again, Kyle Rittenhouse, through whatever, maybe it was immaturity, manipulation, whatever. Maybe he was hanging out with, inspired by adults who really should know better. Have you ever seen Vice News? I think they had a really good bit on. Have you ever heard of the 3% militia in Georgia?
It may have come across my eyes once, but no, I'm not familiar.
It's this anti-government militia that's in Georgia that let the Vice News cameras like check out a weekend in the life, and like they all use military rank appointed by themselves. And like the one guy, he was like, "Oh, I'm Captain whatever," and he's like, "Hey, got my gun. Never leave the home without it." Oh, good. Yeah, go up and shoot somebody with that, please. Yeah, watch how fast you are in prison forever. I mean, what is wrong with you? And they're out in the woods and they're trying to do push-ups and whatever. I'm like, okay, well, at least they're working out and getting some fresh air. But they're like, yeah, we're ready to take down the government. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Now it's just, I get where they're coming from because they have a certain stance, but they're going about it the completely wrong and unintelligible way. There's nothing wrong with, being armed. That's okay, but being what is this camp? Like what the hell is going on here? And that's why they do something like this, because they're like, oh yeah, hell yeah,
Badass.
we'll definitely do a segment on Vice, and then they just look like idiots, and then they don't understand. You know what? Like, shit.
The best comment I saw on that was, man, this looks like the most extreme paintball team I've ever seen. It's like, yeah,
That's good.
But it's so true. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you couldn't get in the military. Maybe you wanted to, but I don't know, whatever. It almost feels like a lot of people in there are overcompensating for something.
Exactly. And
I
I think that a lot of people that act in this way, they're overcompensating because they are not happy with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're not comfortable in their own skin. So they try and fit a certain mold, whatever mold that they think is the best. And that's why it's interesting how you say that, we don't know, maybe, some of the adults around him were saying certain things that was pushing him to think a certain way. That could very well be the case. He could be very insecure in himself. And he thought, you know what? This is what the adults around me, these are the more mature people around me, think is the appropriate behavior. I am going to be the beacon of that appropriate behavior. And then all of a sudden, shit happens.
It is the classic nature versus nurture. If you grow up in a certain community and this is the norm and this is, like you said, the beacon of good behavior, it is subjective to kind of our upbringing. I live my life a certain way. I know you live your life a certain way. Sometimes we live that life a certain way together when your girlfriend's not looking. Anyway.
You and me?
Once in a while.
You crack me up.
I'm horrible.
But yeah, no, I think it's a really good point, and I'm really glad you brought it up and we could discuss it further.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Rittenhouse goes, you read more about him. His goal is to be an EMT and then a nurse. Cool. I hope you are able to follow through with that. I hope you learn from this experience. I hope you do something really good in the world to make up for the fact that two people are regardless of how bad they were, no one deserves to die under in that situation. I hope he goes out and does something good. I really hope something good comes out of this whole situation. And I really think the adults that he was around, though, I think they need to take a long look within themselves.
Oh, they won't. They won't.
No, they're going to keep hanging out with 16, 17-year-olds because these kids were the washouts in high school or whatever. I mean, I went to high school with kids like this. And I'm just like, you know what? If I'm 22, 23, 30 years old, you know who I'm not hanging out with? High school kids. I don't want them anywhere near me. They're covered in germs, and they're weird music and dress style, and back
And
in
they have the sexes with
they
others.
have the sexes. Back in my day, we got a first name. I'm just saying. And back in my day, we had these things called songs. All right, where people sang lyrics and played guitars. Just saying.
Good
Today's
Lord.
youth.
Good Lord, you're cracking me up right now.
Okay. But
yeah, no, I think that's about it. And I really hope that there's not any crazy riots that happen tonight. And if there are, it's because people are bored. To be honest, it's because people are bored, and they're not. It's going to be the same situation over again. That's what I was saying before. It could end up just being a cycle where people get mad. There's another riot. Something else happens. Then we get another trial, and it just keeps happening. And it's like, what do you people want? And really what it comes down to is you choose what you want based on getting out there and voting.
mm-hmm.
I wasn't expecting this to be an entire vote campaign, but it's so true. This is our government. We form the government. So let's actually form the government. Because like I said before, I don't vote every year. So I know myself, I can't complain on what the laws are because I am not making an active change on it. Whereas I don't know if you do, but I know a lot of people do actually vote every single year, and that's important.
Yeah, I try to vote. I missed this last election, but there wasn't that much on the ballot. So, but I do try to vote local, and yeah, I mean, anybody watching the playback on this, just remember the very least, the most civic thing you can do, and probably one of the easiest things to do, get out and vote or request the mail-in ballot. Just like the slogan goes, let your voice be heard. So and that's really the only way we're going to affect change, address some of these issues in the system, because there are inequalities in the system that need to be addressed. And the way everybody's been going about it has been wrong, whether it's rioting, counter rioting, name calling, doxing, shutting people down. We're going about this wrong. It's not working. And really, I think it's important that, I try to have conversations with people I don't agree with on anything. You just try to keep it civil, and hear their perspective.
What's going on over there?
Someone's blocking the road.
It's the start of the riot.
Oh my God!
Yeah. No, but that's great. I think that's a very good way to summarize it.
Yep.
So
I think a lot of positivity in this conversation. I'm glad nobody flew off the deep end, and yeah.
Well, Matako he's in the toilet.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know what? That guy is actually, he's pretty cool. He was
He's a good guy.
He was slinging drinks the whole other night when we were at the show. So yeah, it was fun.
Good stuff.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and end it here. And appreciate anybody for tuning in or watching on the replay. Again, just remember, you shape your future. You make your reality. And if you're choosing not to do so, you have nobody to blame but yourself for where your reality is.